of a shot of winning. We can beat anybody in the world, and I think we're going to win next Sunday.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of New York Jets Atlantic Flight Podcast. We're here today to have a chat about some potential trade candidates that the New York Jets could look at in this young off-season. Gus is here with me today to have a chat about this. How are you, Gus?
Not so bad, not so bad. It feels funny being this side of the microphone for a change, but I'm glad you're here and I'm glad you're talking about it. And it's an interesting time of the year, isn't it? We've got all this draft capital. I saw the dead cap. Our dead cap is not too good, but we should have enough money, and we've got a plethora of low round picks that we could use as trade capital, haven't we?
Yeah, and that's sort of where this discussion started, looking at just the number of those later round picks that we've got this year. And I think I was doing a mock draft yesterday, and just the idea of Mougey having a 12 pick draft class felt a little bit unlikely. And given the success that he had in the preseason with using some later round picks to bring in some talented yet unwanted players from other teams, it felt like something that he could look at to try and fill out this roster. So we came up with a couple of players that we want to have a chat about and see, do we think they would be good targets for the Jets to potentially use some of that day 3 draft capital on to try and bring some experience to this team. So let's get cracking, and we'll kick off with one that you actually had a chat with Dylan Terraman about yesterday when you had him on the podcast. And I know that Dylan brought this up kind of by way of Will Parkinson and the guys on the Badlands feed. He mentioned the defensive tackle T'Vondre Sweat from the Tennessee Titans. What? First of all, Gus, what did you think of that proposal?
I'll be honest with you, he actually caught me off guard with that one. I just thought that was like out of the left field. I was just like, we need that big body in the middle of our defense. We seem to think that we're going to be running a 3-4. So we need at least one more body going into that. However, I remember that Glenn also ran some 4 lineman sets as well. So it's like this kind of hybrid. I don't think we actually stick to a 3-4 or a 4-3. It's just this double-headed monster. So, yeah, oh my God. T'Vondre Sweat is a monster, 6'4", 366 pounds, I think. So he's still for the Titans. What it would take to actually prize him away from the Titans, I'm not quite sure. But I would absolutely love T'Vondre Sweat. Would you?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that was kind of part of the inspiration for this, was just that kind of creative idea of how they can look to fill some of the holes, because obviously he's unlikely to be a fit for what Tennessee are going to be doing this year. But like I say, he's a good kind of rotational piece for us to have, so that Harrison Phillips can kind of play that more outside role when we are like in a 3-4 set. But then he can get out of there when it's time for them to put four down linemen out there. And Phillips and Briggs are fine in the middle on their own then. So yeah, I really like the idea. Like you say, he's got 2 years left on his rookie deal, so it probably takes slightly more than just a day 3 pick. But yeah, I'd be excited by that one.
Yeah, he excels in the interior, doesn't he? And that's where we've struggled so badly this season, and you could argue the season before as well under Salah. We're just totally getting gashed up the middle. So we need a plug. We need to be able to stop that run. Once you can stop that run, and we can get teams to actually start opening up the pass, then that opens up a whole nother can of worms as well. But yeah, I would absolutely love T'Vondre Sweat. There are other players that I would like, and I've got my eye on. We talked prior to coming on air here, but they're all due to be free agents. So I will just mention this one. I think this is a key possibility. I know we're talking trades here, but I will mention Sheldon Rankins as well. I've got a funny feeling that Rankins could be on his way, but we never know. But we're talking about trades here, so yeah, it was it was a wake up moment for me when Dylan said that yesterday. But yeah, I would absolutely love Sweat coming in. I think he would fit nicely with Harrison and Briggs.
Yeah, and kind of you mentioned at the end things the Jets have struggled with. Another thing we struggled with massively last year was the safety position. And one guy that might be on the trade block this year, because there was a lot of talk about him prior to the trade deadline last season, is Buda Baker, who is with the Arizona Cardinals at the moment. Now, he's got a bit of a cap hit that comes with him. He's got about 30 odd million left on his deal over the next 2 years. But is Baker someone you would think would be a good addition to the Jets this year?
Absolutely. It was a couple of years back. I think it was a couple of years back. He looked like he was going to be becoming a free agent, and it was back in the day. Italy Jet, Gino, he was all for getting Buda Baker in there at that time as well. So he's been like, for people I know in Jet circles, he's been constantly linked. But as you know, we are having such a problem in the safety area, and we've got Malachi Moore, who's been the exception to that rule. But we've got Cisco who went out injured. Tony Adams is just so up and down, and it's just we are absolutely desperate for safety help, to the point where I wouldn't even be too bothered if I'll probably get told to wash my mouth out with soap for saying this, but I wouldn't even be too bothered at number 2 if we actually drafted Downs. But there are a few good safeties in this draft, so I would be happy to take someone like Buda Baker, who you're probably going to get for a 2-year deal, probably something like that, maybe a 3-year deal, and then they can mentor these young guys, because I'm hoping that as I say, we've got Malachi Moore in. What is Malachi Moore's best position at the moment? We don't know. Before we drafted him, when I looked at him last year, I said it was like a Swiss Army knife, because he can play in the nickel, he can play both safety positions, and he can play corner as well. So he can play all over. I've seen some people project him as being a nickel or a backup nickel from the safety role. So you're going to need at least 1 or 2 safeties. So I do think that we are going to either pick up in free agency or by trade. But you want someone that knows what they're doing. And Buda Baker, he's been one of the best. He's an all-pro safety. Six Pro Bowl selections I think he's had in his career. So yeah, I would absolutely take him.
Yeah, that's the important thing, isn't it, really? It's that experience back there. He's going to be, 30 years old this season, I think, and he's got a couple of years left. Like you say, there's the potential that if we try to do this all through the draft, that we end up with a very inexperienced room back there. And you've already got, like you say, Malachi Moore there. You've got AZ Thomas at corner. So it's not the most experienced backfield. And I think it's going to be really vital to have someone back there who can get everyone else set up, everyone lined up. And I think the Cardinals themselves are probably on pace for a massive teardown this off-season. And they could be looking to shift some of those kind of older guys out with those big cap hits. So Baker is probably a very realistic target as well. So yeah, I think I'd be really excited to see him come on board and bring that experience to our backfield.
I'll tell you another thing as well, and if this is true, there's another reason to go out and get him as well, because there are some rumours circulating that the Buffalo Bills are potentially going to be making a move for him as well. So that could have benefits on 2 fronts, taking someone away from the Bills and making us stronger. So another reason for going for Buda Baker. So yeah, I would absolutely love Buda Baker. I'm not sure how much do you think it would cost to take him in terms of draft capital?
I don't think it's anything more than a 6th or 7th round pick, just like you say, because of the age, because of the cap hit that's going to come with him. I think you're not looking at anything more than kind of a late day 3 pick. And I think they'd be happy to shift him. It just depends how much of the cap you want the team to keep. I think they're stuck with about $7 million dead cap this year anyway, but they can shift quite a bit of it to the new team, depending on obviously how they decide to shake it out.
So we could actually assign him to the ranks of Ronnie Lott, Ed Reed, and now Buda Baker. We get these safeties coming in at the back end of their career, and they give us like 1 or maybe 2 years of great play, and then they shuffle off. But we seem to be a team that does take these older safeties.
Yeah, and it's the right time to do it as well, I think.
Yeah, I would like that. Yeah, very much.
So one of the other areas, again, of a lot of discussion this off-season, because obviously at wide receiver, we've got Garrett Wilson. Apart from that very brief stint where Devontae Adams came in to help him out, it's felt like he's been all on his own out there with just a load of role players and part-time characters. But it would be nice to get another decent wide receiver out there. And I think this is an off-season where you've probably got a lot of options there. There's obviously bigger names, the likes of A.J. Brown, who's probably going to be on the move this off-season. But I imagine at his age, will only really want to go to a contending team, which, as much as I love the Jets, that's not where we are at the moment. But I think there's a few decent options out there. And you brought up an interesting name before we came on. So do you want to have a chat about Darnell Mooney and why you think he'd be a good fit?
I've been an advocate. I mean, we've seen Garrett Wilson. I'll start off with why. I'm going to mention this guy's name. I've always thought of Garrett Wilson is probably his best position is at the Y, so out of the slot. The reason why I say that is because he's his route running. So when he came out of Ohio, he was known for his route running skills, and they are silky smooth. He runs brilliant route running. So for someone like Aaron Rodgers to say that Garrett Wilson's run the wrong route is just like, no, I'm not buying that. So the reason why I think he should be playing out the slot, and I mentioned this off air, is you've got the whole field in front of you, and you're playing underneath as well for a lot of that time. So you've got to be good with yak, which he can be. He has excelled in it. And the important thing is when you're an X or a Z, you've got that sideline as well. So defenders can use that sideline as the 12th man on defense. You haven't got that as a Y. So as a nickel corner covering the slot wide receiver. So you've got that middle of the field. You can go anywhere. You can do anything. And if you've got good separation like Garrett Wilson has, you're very, very dangerous. And what prompted me to think this in the first place was when we lost Michael Carter. And I'm just looking around the league at nickel corners, because we always used to say, Michael Carter's one of the best slot corners in the league. And I was looking around and I was thinking, there aren't that many good slot corners. Why are we not using Garrett Wilson, who is our top wide receiver, in the slot? He'll do more damage there than anywhere else, because traditionally your top corners, they're outside corners, aren't they? They're not traditionally your best corners that are playing inside. So which is why I'm going to say what I'm saying. So we've got Adonai Mitchell. We know that he can stretch the field. He'll be on the team next year. Mechie, he's pretty much a Y as well, but he's got a problem with drops. So we need someone that can really burn the field. Okay, we've got Arian Smith. There's a really good chance that Arian Smith may not even make the 53 next year. Huge drop of the ball by Darren Mougey on that one. So the name I'm going to throw out, as you've already said, Darnell Mooney. He is an elite separator, and he's a deep threat receiver for the Falcons. He's got 4.38 speed, and he primarily serves as the team's X receiver, where he uses his vertical speed and route running nuances to create space downfield. So what this means is when you've got someone that's reliable and they can catch that ball going over the top, it is going to free up Mason Taylor. It's going to free up Garrett Wilson. It's going to free up, if hopefully you hear, Breece Hall. But you need that X, and we haven't got a decent X. Adonai Mitchell flashed last year, but are we really going to go into the season putting your all eggs in one basket? So we need that deep threat. Of course, we're coming into the draft, and there are a number of elite wide receivers going to be going in that first round and probably into the second round as well. The likes of Mackay Lemon, who would absolutely fill that role as well. But if we're picking up another wide receiver in via trade, this is someone I don't think that would cost too much money. As I say, he's classified as a wide receiver deep threat. He's got good separation, good route runner, and he's versatile as well. He's a little bit smaller than I would like. He's 5'10", about between 170 and 180 pounds. So it's very, very light. But he's playing underneath Drake London. So I think that the Falcons will probably be looking to move him on. But he's a shifty wide receiver that I would like to see on the Jets. What do you think?
I think it's a good shout. Like I say, we've and I know it was important to the Jets when they made the Sauce Gardner trade to kind of bring in Adonai Mitchell as part of that trade, but it's kind of just throwing everything at the wall at this point, because that's kind of what Adonai Mitchell, John Mechie, bringing in using Isaiah Williams, having Josh Reynolds and Tyler Johnson on the team last year, but Reynolds and Johnson are both free agents now. Mechie, the Jets have got him as a restricted free agent, but don't necessarily have to retain him. So there's a lot of spaces to fill. And like you say, Arian Smith, well, you know, if he's on the team or not, I think it makes much difference. So they need bodies to put in there to see what sticks and what works in this Frank Reich offense. And like you say, having that guy who can stretch the field is massive. And if we don't manage to get someone like Alec Pierce in free agency, who's going to command quite a lot of money this off-season, I think bringing in someone like Mooney makes a hell of a lot of sense, because he doesn't seem to have stuck particularly well in Atlanta. And maybe there is something there additional that's untapped that teams saw in him when he was originally drafted.
I don't think we should also, I know he's still on the team, so this isn't fitting in with the MO of what we're talking about here, but I wouldn't sleep on Quentin Skinner either. At the back end of the season, he managed to find his way up to the starting lineup. And there's a few of us on this podcast that have been quite high on Quentin Skinner, so I think there's maybe a role for him to be had here as well. So there is a possibility that we're not as bad at wide receiver as we think. And as you've brought up, we've now got Frank Reich. And people say, I don't want to pigeonhole Frank Reich as saying he is a West Coast offensive coordinator, because he adapts every single game. He'll look at a defense that he's playing and he'll make changes. So we could go from run heavy to West Coast in the blink of an eye. So I think the key here with our wide receivers is they've got to be adaptable. And yeah, so stretching the field is going to be absolutely paramount to freeing up what I think Frank Reich will want to do with the run game and the pass game.
Yeah, like I say, we might not be as bad as we think we are, but it's like I said, we just need as many options as possible in there. And I don't think it'll stop at, I think there's a good chance that even if we did trade for Mooney and we brought someone into free agency, I think they'll still look to add someone in the draft as well, just because this room needs options more than anything else.
How much do you think Alex Pierce is going to command?
I think he'll be one of the top wide receivers this year in terms of pay. There's not a lot of them coming out in free agency, so I think he will get absolutely paid, because someone will think that they've got a wide receiver one there. Because I think he really showed up this year for the Colts, and he's that kind of field stretching player. He can be on the field most downs because he can block, he can do a lot of other things. So yeah, I think someone's going to pay him a lot of money. And it might price the Jets out, given how much he paid to Garrett Wilson last year.
And we said this before we came on air. I think it's fair to say everyone is. I know that Ryan is a big advocate of this. On 6th round and 7th round picks, you just take a swing, and it's so good to pick up these players in even the 5th round, 5th, 6th, 7th round, and we've got a plethora of them. I forget how many you said we had at the beginning of this, but we've got like a ton of these late round picks, and it would be a shame, because I'm looking to get rid of them for taking swings at guys. Okay, I wouldn't mind parting with a late round pick for someone like Buda Baker, but just for the sake of picking up someone just to fill a roster spot, I would much prefer to actually take someone in the 6th or 7th round and give them a shot. And sorry,
outside of the 4th round, so once you get past our 2 first rounds, our 2 second rounds, and that 4th rounder, we've got 7 picks.
that's unbelievable.
Which is just, I don't, as much as I like day 3 players, I don't know how you take that many players on day 3, and because that's a big chunk of your roster.
It's a huge chunk, and someone's going to get cut. So
yeah, exactly.
Training camp could be very interesting.
Yeah, it will be. It'll be competitive at least.
Yeah. So what other positions are we really looking at? So DT, we definitely need a DT or possibly 2, either in free agency or via trade. Again, the point I was going to make, and I didn't quite make it, I got tripped over my own words there, was that I think for the first time in a long time, a lot of these players that could be available for 6th or 7th round picks, I'm not sure that the value's there when you look at what players are actually going to be available in free agency. So do you think it's better to hang on to those 6th and 7th round picks rather than take a swing at someone that's just looking for maybe a payday, an older player? Or is it not just worth waiting to see who comes available in free agency? Because there is a ton of really good free agents. Our weaknesses play into the players that are going to be available on free agency.
Yeah, I think the issue with free agency is always that we look at the list of upcoming free agents and we all get really excited. Like we've mentioned his name already. We've talked about Alec Pierce is coming up. I would love to get Alec Pierce. Chances are he doesn't get out of the building in Indianapolis, and that's the same for a lot of these players as well. A lot of the top guys will end up being re-signed by their team. The only ones who won't are ones where they've got a young guy coming up behind people who are ready to be replaced, or they're pricing themselves out of a homegrown contract. So that's when you kind of have to pivot and start to look at trade options and things like that, so that you're not completely reliant on the draft and you're not pigeonholing yourself in as well. And I think that no matter where we think the options are, we might end up with that pool looking a lot thinner than it does at the moment.
Yeah, other players that have caught my eye DT are Darren Payne, Commanders. There's a possibility that he could be on the trade block. David Onyemata, again, another Falcons. And obviously, I've mentioned this guy before, Sheldon Rankins, but he's due to become a free agent. So I just have a sneaky suspicion that he's going to be coming back to the Jets. There's another wide receiver at Washington Commanders, Treylon Burks as well. So there's a possibility that he could be looking for a new fresh start as well. I've got one more wide receiver that could be let go, or he could be traded, Roman Wilson. So that's pretty much all I've got on the trades that I would be going for anyway.
Yeah, Roman Wilson's an interesting one. He was only drafted recently, wasn't he, by the Steelers? He's one of those players who you always felt he was about to come out and then ended up going back to college for another year. So he's only played 2 seasons at Pittsburgh.
Yep.
So he'll have another 2 years left. Yeah, he could find himself, because obviously there's been a big change over in Pittsburgh with them having a new head coach for the first time in what will be some people's lifespan. So yeah, he could find himself sort of on the outside looking in. One of the other names I wanted to mention, speaking of Pittsburgh, and you'll have to hear me out on this one. Because,
okay.
The other one I was thinking of was Patrick Queen.
All right.
The linebacker in Pittsburgh. Now, you might be asking yourself, Andy, we don't need another linebacker who can't cover and can't tackle. Because if you look at his stats for the past couple of years in Pittsburgh, you could be forgiven for thinking that he can't do either of those things particularly well. Last year, his PFF grades for tackling was 29.8 and his coverage grade was 31.3, which could be the only player out there worse than our linebackers. But sometimes trades are all about banking on the upside. And I think that Queen has shown in the past, in his last couple of years at Baltimore, that he can play really well in the type of system that we're going to be running. He can cover well, he can tackle reasonably well, he's good in the run game, he is disciplined, and he's an intelligent player. There's a reason that he went in the first round back in 2020. And I think it's probably going to be a very low cost one for us to consider. He's on the last year of his deal. You could probably even successfully renegotiate that contract that he's got to give him a couple more years on a much cheaper deal given his performance. But I think that's a nice little upside swing that we could make rather than taking someone in the 7th round. What do you think to Patrick Queen?
Well, it's funny you should say that, because I was looking at linebackers and I'm finding it difficult. There's 2 candidates at linebacker. One of them is going to be a free agent anyway, and he's heavily linked wherever you go. Anzalone, he is super linked. I think it'd be more of a surprise if Anzalone doesn't end up being a Jet. But another one that got brought up, and I think it was Dylan that said this yesterday, was Demario Davis, who's had 2 stints already with the Jets. Both times that he's left the Jets, I've been absolutely gutted. One of my favourite players. The man is a load. He's a leader. And I think he's an old dude now, but he's still got it. I think you're probably looking at the swan song that CJ Mosley had as well. So, but he is a big dude, and he can plug that middle, and he can make those tackles in between the D line, and he can also free up help for other linebackers coming in as well. So he eats up blocks. But getting back to Patrick Queen, I've heard you out, and as I say, one of the people that I was actually looking at, funnily enough, was Patrick Queen. So it's quite funny that you've actually brought him up. I was looking at him, and I slightly got put off by his stats. And obviously, we know the game isn't played on paper. As you say, in 2020, he was drafted by the Ravens. He spent 4 seasons there. And funnily enough, it was his last season in 2023 for the Ravens. He actually did quite well, which probably prompted the Steelers to acquire him. But since he's been in the Steelers, his stats have just dropped every year. So, for example, his combination tackling, we'll go from his 3rd year in the Ravens. It went from 79 all the way up to 84. And then he joined the Steelers, and it went from 84, dropped all the way down to 65, and then to 56. So clearly there's something in the Steelers that isn't merging or meshing with the way that he plays, whether or not it's age or it's something else. But his sack rate's dropped off as well. So he's never had more than 5 sacks in the season. That was his 3rd year. He had 5 sacks, and it's dropped down in the next year, last year with the Ravens, to 3.5. And then in 2024, he's had 1 sack, and in 2025, he's had 1 sack. So not exactly explosive, but I think it's probably more down to the system rather than the player. So yeah, I wouldn't mind that. And I think, as you've rightly pointed out, you could probably pick him up for a 6th or 7th rounder.
Yeah, and the other thing about Patrick Queen, and I was quite surprised when I saw it, given how long he's been in the league now. He's only going to be 27 when the season starts.
He's still very young.
Being in the league for 6 years, so he's still young, relatively speaking. So yeah, I'd be quite happy to pick up Queen and just to give it a go, because still trying to be positive about the Jets as much as possible. That is probably what this season is going to be all about, just giving things a go and seeing what sticks. Because it's kind of a try anything year, because I don't know, expectations are low again. So if you can pick up some guys and give them a chance, maybe you've got someone who can stick around and be part of the longer term plan.
And I will add this as well. We brought this up on the coaching podcast yesterday with Dylan. We've got a new linebackers coach in Ben Bolling. He was assistant linebackers coach for the Texans. Very, very excited to have Bolling on board. I think Bolling has got a lot to bring. He's only 4 years experience, but he's one of these young coaches that's come in, and he's very well thought of within league circles. He'll have a point to prove. He's now got the gig. He is linebackers coach. So it's going to be interesting to see what he'll be able to do with someone like Queen. Bring back their better years like they had in the Ravens. And obviously, we've also got Cole Dunbar as well, so that's going to help as well. So we've got a really good D-line coach now, and we've got, hopefully, because it's still hopeful, Ben Bolling's going to bring these linebackers on. So I think Queen is actually a really good shout, mate. So yeah, I would love to see that.
So one more name for you before we get out of here. And it's one that I asked this question to Joe Caproso on Twitter yesterday about who we could look at as trade candidates. And one name that he threw out, which is quite interesting given how much you've talked about Alec Pierce, is the other Indianapolis receiver, Michael Pittman Jr. And it's not completely out of the realms of possibility if they do decide to retain Pierce, given that they've also got Tyler Warren, who's that kind of dynamic player out there at tight end. Could they consider moving on from Pittman, who is in the last year of his new deal with them? He's been a very productive receiver. Last couple of seasons, obviously his biggest year was 2023, where he had over 1,100 yards. Dropped off a little bit since then, but that's probably had more to do with Indianapolis than it has had to do with him, given the quarterback uncertainty they've gone through. But even last year, 784 yards, 7 touchdowns. So he's been productive throughout his time there. So would you take a punt on Pittman, given that we may potentially need to give him a new contract at some point as well?
Yeah, it depends. We've mentioned this at the beginning. I think we've got something like 96 million dead cap or something at the moment. I think we lead the league in something, and it is dead cap, which is not an enviable thing. That said, I think we're something about 3rd or 5th in cap to spend, so it's kind of offsetting. It's going to be a massive cap hit. I think it's something in the region of 29 million salary cap hit for the Colts in the 2026 season. I think he's scheduled to earn 22 million base salary and 2 million roster bonus. That's if they restructure him, which could free up some cap space. How much you see teams do this all the time. They'll trade for a player, and because a team is in cap hell, they'll quite often say, because they need to offload the player, you get sometimes they will take on some of the cap. So whether or not Indy would take on some of the cap, I'm not quite sure. But what kind of draft capital are you giving up for Michael Pittman?
I think, like you say, given the fact that Indy probably wants something back for him, given the fact that they find themselves light on draft picks,
Yeah.
I could see giving up a 5th rounder for someone like Pittman.
Yeah, he would definitely complement Garrett Wilson. That would be an explosive duo, and then throw in a Makai Lemon as well. How?
It's exciting stuff. All we need to sort out then, Gus, is who is going to throw them the ball. But that's not something that the Jets worry about too much.
No, we've never worried about that at all. But yeah, I wouldn't mind that at all. Has Indy got a problem with their cap? Because letting someone like Michael Pittman go is like, you've just traded for someone like Sauce Gardner, so you're now letting one of your better players go. Did they make a mistake in trading for Sauce Gardner, do you think? And they've overstepped it because obviously they took on his wage bill as well.
Yeah, I think they probably thought they were closer than they actually were. And who knows? Maybe if Daniel Jones doesn't get hurt, then they go on a bit more of a run than they did at the end. I mean, they've got just under 35 million effective cap space this year, so they're not in dire straits. But I think if they want to retain someone like Pierce, and they want to bring in some free agents of their own to try to fill out some of those more problematic spots, they still have to try and re-sign Daniel Jones as well. So they're probably looking up to free up as much cap as possible. Like I say, they might try and keep them all and push money down into the future. But I feel, and I have nothing to back this up at all other than a general feeling, I feel like in India pretty good at keeping their cap under control. They're not like the Saints where they're just going to chuck a load of stuff into the future and deal with it then. They seem to be quite conservative and well managed in how they deal with their cap. But like I said, I could be completely wrong. They've only got 2 million of dead cap this season, so they're doing a hell of a better job of it than we have in a long time.
Yeah, I've just looked on Sport Track, and he is going to be a 29 million cap hit for them. So that is quite the hit if they do decide to move on for him.
But there are people out there who get paid a lot more money than we do to trying to figure these things out, Gus. So they can make anything work.
Yeah,
as the Saints have been proving for a little over a decade.
Is the salary cap real? We often hear that because you find these teams that don't seem to have any cap wiggle room at all. All of a sudden, they're signing like 3 or 4 players. You just think, how have you done that?
Yeah, the Saints because they're minus 41 million against the cap this year, with 90 million in dead cap. So I think the salary cap is very real.
It is very real.
You can just push it a bit further out than some teams like to imagine you can.
There was one guy I was going to bring up, so I'm bringing this late to the party.
Yeah, go for it.
Originally, when you asked me who I wanted to sign, as anyone who knows me knows, I'm a huge advocate. I think we're cut from the same cloth, Andy. I'm a huge advocate of safeties, and one of the people I was looking at, I didn't realise that this was the problem. Kirby Joseph, Detroit Lions. There's obviously that Detroit Lions connection, and I think you've got to look at who's on the Detroit Lions, who would be available for trade or whose contracts are coming up. As we've already mentioned, Anzalone is more than likely going to be a free agent. And again, reiterate, the likelihood of him becoming a Jet is pretty good. Kirby Joseph's been one of the top safeties in the league for quite a while now. But I didn't realise that he'd been actually out on IR since December 20th. What was it? Degenerative knee issues. So at that point, I was like quite interested, and apparently he's pursuing non-surgical treatments, including stem cell therapy. So I really feel for this guy because he is a great player, but he's been struck off my trade candidates list as of today. I didn't realise how bad his injuries were. So yeah, in case anyone was wondering why he hadn't been brought up, that is the reason why.
Yeah, he was someone I really loved in the 2022 draft as well, and it's such a shame about the injury because he's played really well. He earned himself a massive contract last off season from the Lions, which was well deserved. But like you say, now he's got this potentially longer standing injury to cope with. And having a look at the contract that the Lions gave him as well, that's one of those kind of Joe Douglas specials where there's like 4 years of void years worth tens of millions of dollars just waiting to hit someone. And I as someone who does not understand some of the structures of contracts, I imagine that there is an out in there somewhere for the Lions in a couple of years. But yeah, even without the injury, the contract itself looks like a bit of a nightmare as well. But it's a shame, and hopefully he does come back from it. But probably not someone teams are going to be trading for this off season.
Yeah, it is a shame. He's been in the league 4 years now, and when you suddenly start reading things like he's looking at stem cell therapy rather than having some kind of operation, you've got to wonder the success rate of the operation if you're having to term stem cell therapy. It is a shame because he's a good player. So yeah, I wish him well, but he's not someone I would want to trade for, I'm afraid.
Yeah, definitely. So that is the trade candidates that we brought for a little bit of a chat today. I'll be following this one up in the next couple of days with an article on the Substack going into a bit of detail about 3 or 4 guys who really stand out as options, looking at their contracts and things like that. So look out for that one on X. Gus, usually it's you asking this question to us at the end, but if people want to find out what your thoughts on things are, where can they find you?
I'm on pretty much on everything on Instagram and Twitter, or X as you want to call it, just at Gustoon, Gustoon.
Brilliant. And there'll be another episode of the Draft Nerds of NiDraft podcast coming up this Wednesday, when we'll be covering the defensive tackle position, looking at those big guys in the middle that we talked about a little bit at the start of this podcast. But as usual, Gus, there's only one thing left.
Y'all know what to say. On 3. 1, 2, 3.